see this, now that I've built this little, theory, right, I can click display here, and it will actually apply this to every case, to all those 8 individuals in my study, okay? And I get a quick little report back up. And it tells me things like, in case number 1, it only found the appropriate supporting codes to infer a high family commitment, right? In case number 2, it found a high work commitment, but not a high family commitment and no conflict, so it couldn't reach the goal of my theory, right? So I'm starting to get worried here. I'm starting to go, well, geez, maybe my assumption that all these people will think their lives will be perfect is, in error or something like that. But as I go through this, I see, oh, wait a minute. Here in case number 5, it was all there. There was this idea they'd be making a high salary. They'd have a fabulous job, the evidence that we were looking for this high work commitment. There was evidence that they wanted to get married and stay married and had kids, and that they've got this high family commitment. And since we infer the potential for work-family conflict, yet even with the potential work-family conflict, we found other codes that suggest they believe they'll have both of these things without any conflicts, that they'll be able to combine them with no problems, or they'll have this successful, happy life. So we can sort of infer, here we go, there was enough evidence to suggest this person, 1 case out of 8, actually has what we were looking for, which is the Cinderella commitment. Now, theories can be built towards my research question, what I'm looking for. I can also, learn things by the fact that 7 out of 8 of my cases did not meet this. Maybe it means that there is no evidence to support my research question. In reality, this is just a tool. The theory builder is just a tool. You can run this iteratively and review your coding, and that's what we're going to do, and rerun this to see whether I simply did not build good enough rules to cover all the sources of evidence for the themes I was looking for, or because my coding was done sort of organically in a grounded theory model, I can see in here I have codes like fabulous non-traditional job and non-traditional field. Well, in my rules, I was only looking for fabulous non-traditional job, but perhaps my code non-traditional field, when I was coding it, I was really coding any good non-traditional job, and one just struck out in my head as being fabulous because of something the subject said as opposed to this, but perhaps they're really the same code, right? And so I can begin to review those codes, review my coding, and my annotations about the codes or descriptions of the codes, rerun this theory as I need to, and iterate to see whether I really do have the evidence to support my research question in my study or whether I don't. But the theory builder helps frame what my question is and enable me to quickly see where in my initial coding I'm seeing evidence to support it and where I'm not. Again, it doesn't mean that the evidence is not there, and it doesn't mean that in this case number 5 where I found it, that those codes are well supported. And I can always benefit by further review to make sure that my codes are well supported and that I've got the right coding in place. But that's a little quick taste to the theory builder. To add a rule, like let's say one of my other codes here is great job on return non-traditional. Well, great job on return non-traditional and fabulous non-traditional job, as I reflect on those, I remember they're really the same thing. The person was saying, they've got the super job. They're president of a company. They're chief executive officer. They're whatever their dream occupation was. So I'm going to go in here and I'm simply going to add a new rule, show you how you can build these. and I'm going to go in and I'm going to build a rule where I said, well, okay, if I see that they're making that I am making a high salary, and my alternative code, which is a great job on return non-traditional, okay, then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to infer a code, and the code that I'm going to infer is this high work commitment also, okay? So just like I have the rule that says if I am making a high salary and a fabulous non-traditional job, I'm going to add a rule and say, well, you know, if they've got a great job, not quite as good as a fabulous job, but a great job, and they're making high salary, they probably have a high work commitment as well, right? And I can click OK. And yes, you can edit these rules to change conditionals. You can edit these rules to add multiple terms. You can parenthesize stuff. So you can build these. You can build as detailed rules as you wish. You could sit there and say, if I see any of these code, if I see this code or this code or this code or this code or this code, all in parentheses, and this one other code, infer this. Like any great tools, there is a tremendous amount of power in the theory builder. You can also go overboard and build absurdly complex theories. You can, in fact, have multiple goals. So if your research question is branching, it says, if I see these kinds of evidence, that puts the people in this bucket. And if I see this kind of evidence, it puts them in this bucket. You can actually build a hypothesis that has two different goals and drops the people in two different buckets. So it's fairly robust. That came from a question from the audience I just wanted to answer. So we added this fifth rule down here, and now I'm just going to run this again to show you that sometimes adding rules really doesn't help. So a question came in, are summaries of the rule evaluations available by case or rule? So that's sort of in the display, and let me illustrate that when I rerun the display. So the summary that you currently get tells you which rules it was found. So it's telling you which codes it found the condition to be true. It doesn't tell you about partial, like if it only found gets married and stays married but not wants kids, then that wouldn't be true. It wouldn't tell you that it found a part of a rule. But for any rules that it finds the if part to be present, it will tell you it at least got to that rule. And the fact that no other rules in case 1 are listed here means that it literally did not find any of the other if parts to be true. So that's the extent of this report here is the summary. And it is on a case-by-case basis. And you can sort of apply your theory to a subset of cases if you're looking to do so as well. You can't run individual rules per se, but you can take your theory, you can save it under other file names, and you can add and delete rules. So if I just wanted to test rule 1 across everything, I could delete rule, save it under a name like, rule 1 test, and delete rules 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then I'd have just that single rule in a theory building file that I could open up and run as many times as I want against my study. Okay? So trying to answer this question. So here I added this fifth rule, and as I look through, no change in here. A little change in here. It actually found high work commitment twice, but that doesn't get me to my goal. And in in case 5, I still got my thin Cinderella complex, but it really didn't. The only place that that new rule came into effect was in case number 2 here, where Rule 1 already covered the high work commitment. So, you know, all that I'm realizing here is that I coded basically the same source material with the code fabulous non-traditional job and great job on return from a non-traditional field. So that probably tells me I want to consolidate those codes into a single code, and we'll get to code consolidation later on. So just adding rules to make it work is, you know, not doing real research. But you can kind of see the potential for developing a hypothesis that does reflect, you know, what your research question is, and this iterative testing. So